Wired Axcess.
We'll do it live.
Wired Access.
Do it live.
Wired Access.
We'll do it live.
Wired Axcess.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a Wired Axcess podcast. I'm your host, DJ K-Dub Omaha. We're here live at Hurrdat Sports Bar. Greatly appreciate everybody coming out today. I'm going to introduce my cast today. I got today as my co-host, the regular owner of Wired Training Center, Brian Southworth. Welcome to the stage, Brian Southworth. I couldn't do this show if it wasn't for this guy bringing me back. Next up, we have not only a local coach, but she is a 9-time champion, state champion coach from Skutt Catholic. Coach Saunders, welcome to the show, Coach Saunders. Now, if you didn't know, she's also going to be one of the color commentators for the new Omaha Supernovas. Make sure you check it out. It starts next week, local pro volleyball. Now, for the reason that you guys are all here today, this is someone that you know that has done so many amazing things, not only for Omaha Skutt, but also for local area. But she is a Nebraska Cornhusker. Lindsay Krause, welcome to the show. Well. This is our second live show. I greatly appreciate anybody tuning in, not only on live, but also here in studio, or the bar, as we say. It's so different. Lindsay, welcome to the show. My biggest thing that I love to do is bring on athletes, not only that have done great things, but are also looking to give back. And the way that you give back, it is in multiple ways, not only by an example, but someone that they can look up to, someone they dream to be, just as you dream to be a Husker, you know? And for you, your career started so long ago with multiple sports. Volleyball was just there and you were starting to love it. When you were growing up, what was those 3 sports that you loved to do, and how did you roll it into just volleyball?
Yeah, so when I'd say really super young, that was when, your parents kind of just throw you into every sport that they can think to sign you up in. And I was always really tall for my age, so that seemed like basketball stuck pretty early for me. I can think of as early as 8 years old playing basketball. And so that pretty much stuck. And then volleyball was something that I got into later on in my life. So it was basketball and softball for quite a while. And I loved playing softball. I loved being outside, and I loved getting the diversity with also playing basketball, a very different kind of sport. And then that was when I started playing volleyball around, I want to say I was 9 years old. And then I finally got to the club level around 11. And I was, I wouldn't say I was behind, but volleyball is just something that kind of develops later on in life as a young athlete. And as I was 12, 13 years old, I really started to fall in love with volleyball. And I would say that's when it kind of moved ahead of my love for basketball. But I still continue to play both, and I continue to play softball up until middle school. However, as everybody knows, that in Nebraska, softball and volleyball are in the same season, whereas everywhere else, softball's in the spring, but I could not play softball anymore. So that was when it just came down to volleyball and basketball through high school.
Now, you made decisions, obviously, between those sports. What do you think was the best thing that softball helped with basketball, and basketball helped with volleyball, and softball helped with volleyball? Because they all connect in different ways, but also some people call it a grind, and they're only into sports. When it's softball season, I'm up here, you're up here. By the end of softball season, they're down here, and then they're oh, I'm in the next one. Was it that roller coaster as well when you kind of compared the two?
I think when I was doing all 3 at the same time, I was still young enough that I had so much energy that it almost didn't faze me. And then I'd say my softball career, how there was a lot of mechanics in softball that are very similar to volleyball, as far as, throwing a ball and, kind of the same mechanics of your shoulder and hips as it goes to hitting a volleyball. So almost those movements so much earlier in my life that I started doing when I was 6, 7, 8 years old, kind of primed me in a way for once I became 11 and 12. And it was a very similar movement when it came to attacking a volleyball. And then basketball, it was just a completely different game. And I think it was really healthy for my body to be moving in a very different way, other than the same repetitive movements of, lateral movement of jumping all over again at 100%. Now I'm playing basketball and I'm running up and down a court for a whole game, and it's a very different body movement. And I think continue to do that all the way through high school kept my body very healthy. Whereas it prevented me from burnout, what people face a lot from doing the same movements in their body, because it's not just a mental thing, it is a very physical thing of your body just starting to break down. So I feel like having that diversity, playing basketball opposed to volleyball and softball, helped me really healthy.
Well, and I brought Coach Saunders on because she was one of your high school coaches. Coach Saunders, you're lucky to have Lindsay on your team there at Omaha Skutt. When you look at her being a multi-sport athlete, how do you promote this with your kids? And how do you also set cautions? Because there is only so much a kid can physically do.
I think when they get to high school, it gets a little bit harder. I feel if anything, kids at that point are starting to narrow it down. So to get them to continue to be multi-sport athletes and do the demands of their club sports, plus their high school sports, plus their off-season workouts, it ends up, plus their studies, you have to be a very dedicated multi-sport athlete. I think it was easier when I was a kid because I was being pulled 100 different directions all the time. It was a little bit lower key, a little bit easier to do. I think last time we checked, we have over 60% of our kids in our program that are multi-sporters. I wish we had more volleyball basketballers. I think because it's a great break of the continuous pounding that volleyball does on your body. I think the running and jumping, I think it made Lindsay more athletic. I think it made her a better volleyball player because she did play basketball. But it's definitely hard to do in today's time.
Well, Lindsay, you chose to go to Omaha Skutt. That's a choice. It's not something that everybody can go to or chooses to go to. What was your biggest thing in lead for you to go to a Catholic school? And what was that choice like for you?
It wasn't really on my radar, I think, until 7th or 8th grade, just because I grew up in Papillion. And so I grew up just going to, Papillion public schools. It's just like the elementary school in my neighborhood. And then I went to Papillion Junior High. And I think as I got older, I got to be more aware of, just the athletic scene, the academic scene, and just I had family connections there. And I just knew I visited there, or I guess shadowed there when I was in 8th grade. And I just loved it. And I just wanted to be in that environment. On top of the fact that Saunders was just a very notable coach at this point. And so I just thought it'd be a very fun environment to get to be a part of. And I was lucky enough to be able to do all the work study and stuff that made me able and afford to go to school, which was super fortunate for me. But yeah, it was kind of all the pieces just fell into the right place for it to be possible.
I like that you brought up Coach Saunders being there and a great piece of it. Coach Saunders, you obviously started at Omaha South. What's the difference between a public school like Omaha South, especially in the Omaha public schools? Everybody talks about them. Going to Skutt, what do you think is some of the different challenges that you had to worry about at South that's not the same at Skutt?
This is my favorite question people ask me. There's no differences at all. Number one, the public schools are huge. They're a lot bigger. Accountability was kind of hard. I felt like I didn't have kids that were as committed as I was when I was there. That's not true at every public school. So this is 100% just my viewpoint. I love teaching at Omaha South. I love the building. I love the teachers. If I wasn't a coach, I'd probably still be at Omaha South. But the commitment side was not the same. And so I'd have summer workouts at South and I'd have 4 kids show up for a summer workout. My first day at Skutt, I had 60 kids. They come to workouts? I didn't know. So it was it was almost like it turned a switch on me to I wanted to be a better coach for all those kids versus showing up and then feeling like I wasn't getting anywhere with it. Now, those 4 kids were important, obviously. I mean, they took the time to be there and I showed up for them too. But it's a big difference when you're trying to build a program. You need more than 4 people to show up. But yeah, I honestly, I wouldn't be surprised at some point I go back into public school when I get out of coaching.
See, and I like that you brought up the biggest struggle of an Omaha South. I coached football there, and I think your game plan changed, right? You're how many kids can I get from start to finish and get them developed along the way? But the parent involvement is different. What is that like? Obviously, Lindsay, with your parents, what was it like to have them supporting you and know that they were there to support whatever decision you were making when it came to high school and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I think my parents, from a young age, they knew my dedication to just being the best person I could be, whether that was, with my athletics, with my academics, bettering myself as a person. And so when I came to them with this, I guess, desire to go to Skutt, it was, I would say, a little bit easier for them to support me, even though it was kind of, an expensive endeavor, just because they knew my commitment to bettering myself and to doing all these things. And they knew that I had goals in mind. So it wasn't kind of just like a whim decision. So I think them supporting me all the way up until high school, and they knew and they saw my vision of what I wanted to do and my desires of, pursuing academics, college degrees, further than a bachelor's degree, athletics, playing pro volleyball, all of this stuff. And I thought that this was going to be a good stepping stone for me. So they're, I'd say, pretty easy to convince.
Well, and Brian, you have a son and young kids coming up. You're seeing how obviously you have to make big decisions. Hearing this stuff from an athlete like Lindsay and also a coach like Coach Saunders, how does this kind of sway you one way or another as a parent, or help you in the situation to understand that, one, you're not alone in the big decision to make it for the kids, but it also, like Lindsay said, you got to really back what they want to do.
Yeah, one, I mean, you got to have someone that's motivated, that wants to do it every day. And then I think people underestimate the sacrifices that families make and the team surrounding you. I mean, there's a lot of people invested in your success. And, I think that's part of it. Like, probably what helps motivate you every day is you had a lot of people in your corner that you didn't want let down. And, going to my kids and those kids, I mean, it's tough, but you got to support what the kid wants to do. I would hate to be sitting at the end of his high school career and talking to him. It's like, well, hey, here's your options, and think back, man, did I give him every opportunity to succeed? And that'd be tough.
Did I put him in the right situation? Lindsay, of course, you make this big decision to go to Skutt, and you're looking at what is already there. What did you feel like you could bring to the team, and what were you looking to succeed in that team?
I think going into high school, my goal was just kind of to bring young fire, I guess. I know when I decided to go to Skutt, I wasn't committed to play volleyball, but by the time season had started, I was committed to play volleyball at Nebraska. And I think going into my freshman year, that wasn't so much on my radar. It was more just like, I'm in high school and I'm 14 years old, and I could be playing against girls that are 18 years old. And, like, I'm good at volleyball. I know I'm good at volleyball, but that still can kind of seem like a little bit of a daunting task. So I feel like I went into high school volleyball just so excited to be there. And, just the role on my team was weird. I don't know if you remember my freshman year rotation. We ran
YMCA ball.
We ran like a random like kind of rotation. If you know how volleyball works, my freshman year, if you watched us playing volleyball, you'd be so confused. But I just came in and I was just so ready to do whatever. And like I played middle and outside my freshman and sophomore year, and I was just so down for whatever. It was just so much fun because I was with so much people, and I think it was really cool, being a young 14-year-old. It's really special and really fun to play volleyball on the same team as like 17 and 18-year-olds, because you just feel, I don't know, it's really empowering.
Well, I mean, you played club ball, and how important do you feel like that was?
Oh, I think club is really important if you're able to, because the way I looked at it was club is like a 7-8 month long season. And so club is really where you are trying to become, I would say, a better volleyball player. You are really able to hone in because you have the time to like hone in on specific skills to get better, do all this stuff. Whereas in high school, you don't necessarily have the time to completely like get extremely better at a skill. You can like focus on one thing and, really try to get better on that. But in high school, it's like, how can I become a better teammate? How can I find out how to work well with these girls? How can I do all these things? Because, your high school team, I was blessed with a great high school volleyball team, but not every high school volleyball team is going to be great, even if you're a great player, So I looked at high school volleyball as a place where I could excel at being a great teammate. How can I learn better about my teammates? How can I learn what they need? And how can I take that into my teams in the future of how to, make a cohesive group out of girls that are kind of just randomly thrown together because we go to the same high school.
Well, yeah. And I mean, and the weird thing about, the club ball is there's so many out there. They're getting so much different training. Coach Saunders, what do you think is your biggest impact to take these girls from all these different, and I don't think most parents understand, high school is not for them to teach you to be the best person. They're going to make you better little bit by little bit, but they're not going to make the biggest difference. And obviously that club impact, and how is it to compare and get all them girls together when they're playing different styles?
It's like a melting pot. You know, like you have some come in, I'm like, what are they teaching here? 5 weeks later, we might have it broken down to get where we want it. But the biggest thing for me is like, you go and you play club, do your thing, get better, play for different coaches. I don't have a problem with that at all. But when you come back, you're playing Skyhawk volleyball, and we have an expectation that's here, and you need to meet it. And it's not always in how you do your skills. We have our training and how we want to do things, but like volleyball's not a one size fits all sport. So what's best for Lindsay might not be best for somebody else. So she might be trained a little differently than these other athletes. So, and I think what a lot of coaches, their problem and what's happened is they get so caught up in things have to be a certain way, but it's not necessarily best for the kids. So I like to consider the Skyhawk volleyball program to be a melting pot, but really we're just trying to be better people, better teammates. I think Lindsay's leadership grew huge. Like you could tell she wanted to be a leader so bad her freshman year, and her IQ was already high. And yes, we did like a weird rotation, and she went for Team USA, and she tried to explain it to him. And I think he came back, he's like, my USA coach asked if we played YMCA volleyball. I was like, not exactly. But then later on, there was like another thing, not necessarily on the Olympics, but they did have a similar situation where they had a player like a Lindsay that played a middle rotation and then right two. Or where I'm like, USA is trying YMCA volleyball. Might be onto something there. But no, it's definitely like Skyhawk volleyball, you know.
For you, coaching, so many different coaches, so much impact. What was your earliest impact that you remember in the coach that really stuck out prior to high school, that really got you to motivate yourself into wanting to be who you are?
I would say that I made a really good connection with most of my coaches. I remember when I was 12 years old, there's this coach, and he's still at my volleyball club, but his name is John Castle. And he is the most committed person to the sport that I've ever met. He just loves volleyball, and he loves the girls, and he coaches 12-year-olds. And I think seeing his commitment to the sport just made me so happy to be there. It made me so happy to be one of his players. And I think every year coming in, I just wanted to be better for my coaches, because I see, especially at the club level and the high school level, you know, these people don't have to be doing these. These are, you know, adults that are doing this because they love the sport. And so I think growing up, I always wanted to be one of those players that when my coach like ended the day, they were like realizing why they do it, and they were happy that they did it because they were surrounded by players like me. I wanted to be one of those players where every single day these adults were happy that they made a decision to come back and coach youth sports. Because especially once you get to like older sports, you know, there's no like children on the team, you know, like when you're younger, they're like, oh, like I might be a coach because like my child's playing basketball, so I'm going to coach his 5th grade basketball team, you know, something like that. But the older you get, you know, these people are doing it because they want to. These people are doing it because they love the sport. And I want to be one of those players that these people were like, that's why I coach.
So several times, you know, you talked about like, I want to be a better person, you know, I want to like leave the team in a better spot. Like, where's it all come from? I mean, it's a very mature personality that I would say is kind of unicornish in today's society. Like, where's that come from?
I think growing up, it's just always been the way that I've thought about things, where I want to be better in all facets of my life, and being better as a person includes making those around me better. And in order to make those around you better, you have to always accept what you don't want a lot of the time, you know, because if I was only a happy teammate, a happy player, only happy person when I got what I wanted, that's not like realistic, and that's not going to happen all the time. So I feel like being able to want what's best for a team, and therefore that's how we're going to be successful, or successful in a life, or successful in my job, you're going to have to be able to accept things that you don't always want for the betterment of the team, for the betterment of the program, you know, stuff like that, because that's ultimately going to lead for more success for all of us. And I'm a part of that team. So I may have to sit in discomfort right now, but it's going to lead to success further down the line.
Now, Coach Saunders, you hear someone like this speaking this way at 14, 15, and you already said it at South, of just the fact of not everybody has that same fire. How do you use a player like Lindsay? And I don't mean it in a bad way of use Lindsay, but how do you use her to help your team to want to do it? Because some kids are just there to play a different sport, but to be involved, and they don't have that fire. How do you use someone like Lindsay to kind of hone in that?
She's a leader, leads from the front. you know, like if the expectation is eye contact, she's going to hold you accountable for eye contact. Like if a kid looks down at her feet, she'll go up and put their chin up and be like, keep your head up. You know, like she's 100%, she does what she says she's going to do. She's kind of an old soul in a way. Like it's funny, like from her freshman year on, she just has a good relationship with adults. I mean, literally, like, I mean, you can tell about your favorite teachers at Skutt, but like she, you know, has jokes with them, talks to them. I think we ate lunch together every single day her senior year. Like she got along better with older people than she did her own peers, but it goes to that maturity that you talked about. Like she's a very mature kid. But she brings people with her. She's a leader that brings people with her.
All right. So then she brought up a good point here. Were you the kid? Because I have kids that's the same thing. All right, we're in adult talk now. It's time to move on. You got to go play with the kids. And you're like, no, I'm staying right here with the adults.
She's also very stubborn.
Well, well, or I'm like one of those kids. Like I'm 21 now, you know, but like there's always like, you know, like the grandkids table. Like I sit with my aunts and uncles and grandparents, and then all my brothers and the cousins all sit together. But I sit with the adults, you know, just like stuff like that.
Even when you were 14, 15, did you feel like you had that same mentality to be because I know how it is. I got 4 of them and they're all fighting for one chair.
What's funny is actually, yes, because my older brother has a son, and my nephew is now 6. So he was born when I was 14, almost 15. So it was almost like he took my chair, and then I got to move up to the big kid table.
We got to have a chair for him. So I got to move up.
Yeah.
Your family. Obviously I coached your brother in basketball, Landon here in Papillion, and he went out to Elkhorn. What is it like to have family members that are also in sports, and how hard is that on the family? I think sometimes people don't understand the sacrifices that parents have to make for that. I know Brian brought it up a little bit. Once you get past one kid that's in a sport, it doesn't get easier to have multiple. What was that like growing up, and how were you able to understand that your parents are going to do the best that they can, but they can't be at everything for one?
Yeah, I think growing up, that was kind of, I grew up going to my older brother's baseball games. I knew a lot because my older brother is 6 years older than me. So it really didn't happen a lot when I was younger because he had already graduated high school by the time I was really starting to, you know, ramp up into a lot of things with like club volleyball. And then by the time I got into high school, you know, he was older. And then my younger brother, Landon, like you mentioned, he's 2.5 years younger than me. So he was 3 grades behind me. He's a senior now. And I think growing up with like siblings that play sports, it's really important to understand, you know, I want them to be at everything, but also at the same time, I have siblings and they deserve just as much love and support as I get, you know, from what I got growing up. And also, I think it's coming from a parent perspective, it's really hard, but like also, like I'm very different from my brothers, and, you know, they want to do, like they have very different aspirations in life. Like my younger brother, he wants to go to trade school and he wants to become a mechanic, and he's so passionate and he loves it. So he gave up athletics by the time I think he was a sophomore in high school. And I think it's just really important to understand that like your children are different. And, you know, even though you may be like a diehard like sports fan, you know, like I'm a college athlete and I had those aspirations since I was, you know, 12 years old, but like my brothers were different, you know, like my older brother played baseball through high school, and then he was like, you know, I'm done. Like I've had my time and I loved it, you know, I'm done now. And my little brother, he was like, I played basketball my freshman year. I played baseball. And I think I've moved on. I think I've moved on to greater things in my life. And, you know, it's not something that you sit in forever.
What you just said right there, like it hits really hard for me because I was, of course, a coach. And we looked at Landon, and of course, it's just like anybody else. He's the tallest kid. He should do this. His sister does this. Those comparisons are so rough on these siblings. And I feel bad as myself because we all wanted more out of them. But as coaches, sometimes you have to step back. Brian, you're dealing with this with kids. How do you step back and have you looked at just other situations like this that other people have where they're like, I'm pushing him more than he wants to be pushed, and I might push him out? I mean, you said he's done after 1 year in high school.
Yeah, you know, man, that's a tough one. You know, you can horse the water, but you can't make him drink it, right? So,
yeah.
You know, I mean, I think everyone just kind of wants their own experience, right? Like, I mean, she wanted to be great. You could tell like that. You know, the other one's playing for a hobby, and there's nothing wrong with either, you know, scenario. I mean, especially someone wanting to go into trade school right now, right? So
yeah, we need those.
Just different goals, different.
I just feel terrible now. Like I feel so bad. I'm not joking. Like, because I have kids and I could only imagine, because I mean, I never was mean about it, but I watched other people the way, come on, Lindsay, you could just do it. And it's like, your brother was just even killed. There was no up, he was just, you couldn't tell if he was happy about it. You couldn't tell. He was just even killed, but everybody wanted him to have fire. Everybody they saw what Big Sis did. They saw what she can do. I'm glad that he's finding his own way. Coach Saunders, obviously a player like Lindsay comes through. You guys do great things. What do you think was the biggest thing that you felt she needed to adjust for the high school level compared to all the levels that she's playing at? And what do you think is something that she helped your team adjust to?
To the high school level?
Yeah.
Honestly, she meshed in pretty easily. She was super coachable, asked a ton of questions. I had to make a rule there was no more questions. Ton of questions. I'm like, let's just play the drill. And if you don't get it, then we'll go from there.
You learned that when she was in a bad mood that day, don't ask as many questions.
And then she's going to tell you that you do weird scoring. But
you're going to tell us how to score points, score it right. That's all I'm saying.
So she's also like a genius, like a mathematical genius. And so I didn't need a scoreboard because she knew exactly what the scoreboard. I mean, we did minuses and pluses and whatever. And Lindsay always knew the score. But I think the biggest adjustment that she made initially was probably just getting used to be her teammates, right? And she's like, this is how I look. Like, I look angry. That's just how I look, and, kind of like being upfront and honest with her teammates, but like they loved her for it because she's Linda. I mean, she's awesome. She's a great kid. But getting, used to her teammates, playing with her teammates. And then obviously like she's developed a lot as a ball handler, learning how to pass, play 6 rotations, get better at defense. Like she continued to evolve through her 4 years. It wasn't like she just wanted to be a great attacker. She wanted to be a great attacker. She wanted to be a great blocker. She wanted to be a great passer and a great server. And she was putting in the reps to do it.
Now, Lindsay, you did a lot of things outside of school with club ball. What was your favorite experience in club ball at a high school level that you just cherish and you wish others could experience, but it's not always easy to get that high?
Well, I'm glad you added the end part because I was going to say my 18s team won nationals.
Yes. So
yes.
Not everybody gets that accomplishment.
Gets to do that. But it was such a memorable experience because my 18s club season, we were like, are we going to have a team? First of all, because I'm pretty sure we had 9 people and one of them was not even our age. She was a year younger. She was a junior. So we had 8 seniors at my club, which is actually very odd. Like I'm pretty sure this year they have like 25. Like this was an odd year at my club. So we're like, number one, are we going to have a team? And then I got hurt. At the end of January, I want to say my senior year, I sprained my knee. So I was out for like 6 weeks. And so, but when you're 18, that's like most of the season. And so I came back for nationals, like it's in April, but I'm not quite cleared to jump as much as an outsider needs to jump. So I was playing libero for my team because our libero went to prom. but it wasn't like bad or anything because she had said like at the beginning of the year, like, I'm not going to go to nationals because I want to go to prom. And our coach is like, yeah, that's totally fine because you're telling us, now, months in advance.
Yes.
But if you're doing math now, that takes us down to like 6 people.
Yeah.
So we had like a 17-year-old. Her name's Skylar. She's at Creighton. She's the DS for Creighton. She had just gotten cleared from double hip surgery like 9 months prior. So she's been playing volleyball for all of like 3 weeks. And then a 15-year-old, Lauren Medic, who plays with Pro League Volleyball. Those two were like, yeah, we'll go to 18s nationals with you. So that's like 8 or 9 people. And then we won.
You're just putting a team together.
Yeah. We had a random 15-year-old, a random 17-year-old, and I was
6'4" libero.
And I was playing libero. And we won nationals.
But there's also a grind with that.
Yes,
because
we were talking, like we came into this with just like the
whatever happens.
Yeah, let's go. I guess this is volleyball. This is our team.
Is it weird? Like I did a little travel volleyball with my daughter, and I noticed when we went and played at the national level, that was the best volleyball these kids ever played. Parents were more supportive.
Mm-hmm.
How was the parent support as you were going through the years of other parents? Because sometimes they see that, oh, this kid's always in, or my kid barely gets any time. And then it's like parents against parents. And I don't get it. Like, if you're all there to win the game, I do understand the money aspect, but you're there to win the game. Did that ever affect any of your teams growing up?
I think that was something, because I have seen that drama at my club a little bit, but I think I've had one of the teams that was like extremely blessed with that, because we almost never really had those sort of issues. I think my team, us like 10 girls that we had mostly the same from like at the high school age. We were all like a very cohesive team. All of our parents liked each other. Like, there was really no any sort of like bad blood ever. You know, we all really got along. And I think we were a team that kind of just was able to say, all right, we're a really, you know, how club can be a really random group of girls. Now we're just going to learn how to play volleyball together at a really high level, because, you know, that's what our goals are. And all of our parents were so supportive of that. They were like, yeah, cool. You might not play this match, but whatever. You know, because in the grand scheme of things, you're playing club volleyball to get better. You're not playing club volleyball to, you know, have 20 kills in a match.
Oh, come on. You knew those counts. You're a counter. But when you look at everything that you've done with that, what is some of the things that maybe someone doesn't realize, whether it's events you missed, whether it's extra training? Volleyball isn't always the same as, you know, like with baseball, you can go to a pitching machine. And I'm not saying that's how you always want to hit, but you get it off a pitching machine one-on-one. Volleyball, you can't spike it yourself.
No.
So what is the training like for that? And how did you find your route to get extra training in?
Well, yeah. I mean, things I missed, like I mentioned. I mean, the girl, Bree Scalo is her name. She plays at Regis now. She was the one on my team who went to prom. She went to high school. So that, I mean, I didn't go to prom. So I never went to prom in my life. As if there's more, there's only 2 opportunities, but I didn't go. But yeah, I mean, growing up, we had high school practice every day when we were in high school. How long were our practices? So I was just kind of crazy compared to other high school coaches. At the beginning of the season, our practice was like 3 hours long.
3 hours, coach.
But that counted lifting and positional.
But
it's
yeah,
mental,
but
right?
I get it all done.
No, yeah, like first 2 weeks of season, expect to be there till like 6:30 after school. But then
She only reads end time, so I started putting PBA.
yes, oh my gosh, this was so funny. Saunders every week, week at the beginning of the week, would send out an email to everyone in the program, like every single player, every single one of their parents, and every single thing that had a practice time. And you know, she always put practice this time to this time. I was like, well, what time does practice end?
So I stopped putting
What
end
else? That's what I want to know.
That is what parents ask. I'm not gonna lie. My wife's like,
Exactly.
"What? All of a sudden now practice is gonna get over 30 minutes later, 30 minutes
That's
early
one of the worst things as a freshman in high school. Like,
when you don't
"Oh,
drive."
I try to be
practice ended
respectful of parents'
early. Will you
times.
come pick me up?
So if we
And then I live like a half hour from high school. So they're like, yeah, I'll be a little while.
if we're done at 6:30, we're done at 6:30 though.
But yeah, that was funny. But we practiced every day. And then once club rolls around, at my club, we practiced twice a week for 2 hours. But then we also had 2 other days a week where you were able to come in for a certain skill. Like my club was called Premier. So it'd be like this day from 6 to 7:30 outsides, we're going to come practice. Or like this day, 7:39, we're going to work on serving, you know, just stuff
You
like
did
that.
say one thing though. You could come, right? Was it mandatory?
No.
Exactly. So
Not
that's
at
a
all.
decision as a kid. You gotta.
Right.
What's your investment?
Right. So it's like so it could be typically when in high school, it was like 3 days a week that I would try to make it to one of those a week. But I was also, you know, in basketball season for 3 months of my first 3 months of my club season. So it's a little bit more difficult. So I tried to get to one of them, you know, a week, but it would be, you know, positional trainings that we would be able to go to. So, you know, just always trying to stay in the grind. But also as I got older, it was about being cognizant of my body. And, you know, like I'm trying to play basketball and I'm trying to do club volleyball at the same time. And sometimes it's just not feasible to be able to do everything at once. So sometimes you have to realize that like, I'm not going to go this week. And that's not being lazy. That's just relaxation and rest that I need in order to be better.
Coach Saunders, she brought up a great thing about her body as far as how do you as a coach help with the nutrition? Just talk about nutrition. Is it something your team really talks to them about? Because if they're going to 5 practices in a week, 4 practices, or doing multiple sports, the amount of food that they put in for fuel has to matter. But I know Brian said before where some kid will go up for baseball and they're packing a bag of Skittles and that's their lunch.
We do have, I think, at the beginning of the year, I'm blessed with kids that make pretty good food choices. You know, if anything, there's some kids that I've had to talk to, they need to eat more. We also do a good job training like mindset. We do ice baths. I mean, we kind of try to hit the gamut to keep them recovered. We do way more ice baths than when you were there.
Yeah, when we did it was like once a month.
It was towards like the end of the season, date time. But now I think it's become part of like our culture, I guess, in a way. Like the kids want ice bath week 1, week 2, week 3, to the point now where they're very cognizant of the rest they need, the recovery they need. They know if they need to get a bag of ice on the way home and do it on the way home, they can do that. But yeah, we try to be cognizant of what they're eating, how much they're eating. If we feel they're lacking energy, we'll talk to them about eating more. They have their pregame food that they always get. You always got a bowl with like meat and cheese and ranch. I swear that's all it was. Is that what you got?
For
You got
what?
the weirdest meal. What did you get for pregame?
I always got pepper jacks.
Yeah, with meat and
cheese, and sauce.
and ranch or something, wasn't it?
Not cheese, just
Meat
steak
ranch.
and tomatoes and lettuce and ranch with rice.
All right, so
Not weird.
you're eating growing up when you had to do all these sports. What was your influence to it, and who kind of guided you on what to get
Wait, what's the question?
on your food growing up?
Oh,
And how did you know if you had enough?
Oh, I was probably one of those people that honestly didn't eat enough. I don't think we ever had that conversation. But I think I got to the point where I was like, I'm bigger than everyone else. I need to eat more. And I think it's not really something that I was like trying to not eat enough, but it was one of the things where it's just like, you don't really think about it. And so I would just like eat. I'd be like, I'm an athlete. And after this, I'm going to go to a 2.5-hour basketball practice. Then I'm going to go to a 2-hour volleyball practice. And I'm not eating enough, plainly just to fuel my body. So I feel like it was just something that I learned, like going through it, you learn as you go. And so it was kind of just like finding things that I wanted to eat. Cause I always also brought my lunch to school every day. So it was also just like finding everything that I'd want to eat to fuel my body. And also just like snacking throughout the day. Cause as an athlete, snacking's not really a bad thing. You kind of need to be.
Need to keep that energy. Brian, you
Yeah.
do some training. Is this a part of it at all? The nutrition, just to even let them know, like, it's okay to talk about it. I think sometimes they're afraid. I mean, if you go to different areas, they're not going to have the same choices. Like I can't go to who I coach and talk about steaks and talk about, the good food that they need.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably one of the most like underutilized tools for athletes, right? I mean, if you want to, perform at a really high level, like feeding your body to perform there is really important. So, in most younger kids are like undersized, they're not strong enough, they're lifting. So, I mean, it requires a lot. And for like the athletes that are doing as much as she was doing or everyone else doing, it's a lot more calories than people think.
Yeah, you're not on that 2,400 calorie diet there.
No.
When you go through your process of being recruited, what was that experience like for you? Because obviously you knew your dream. Your dream was here, home, Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like for you? And did you want to at least experience another college to fill? Or was it like, no, I'm not even.
Well, I had taken a few visits before, but I was also like so young, like I didn't know what I wanted. And I was so nervous about everything. But I had taken a few visits to a few other colleges, done camps or whatever. But it seemed like as soon as, cause like that's what I thought that I wanted. I thought maybe I want to go somewhere else, experience something else. But then as soon as I got my offer to play at Nebraska, it was like, why would I do that?
And this was your freshman year, right?
It was July. So right before my freshman year started, I was just like, why would I do that? It was like the light bulb moment of just like, that was the stupidest idea I've ever had. We're staying right here. And then I committed like 2 days later.
Coach Saunders, freshman committing, not a common thing. How do you go about it to keep it level in your program to understand that, special things like this don't happen to everybody? Your track is your track, and I'm going to help you on your track, whether it is getting an offer at a freshman or getting it as a sophomore, junior, senior.
It doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know how many years ago they changed that, but now
2
it's-
years, I think.
Yeah, it's like June 15th now is kind of the big thing. But in all honesty, like I don't really talk about it. Like again, like if Lindsay wanted help and advice, then Lindsay would come ask me for help and advice. If AG wanted help and advice, I talked to her on the phone through both going to ASU and then the whole transfer portal situation. So, I mean, playing at the next level is playing at the next level. You have to find the right fit with you. You really can't go with labels at that point. You have to really research. And I always ask the kids, like, can you see yourself at the school if you decide you're not playing volleyball anymore? Because I think of all the kids that have been through Skutt since I started, I think it's a 50-50. I don't even think half of them are still finished out their careers. You know, so there's a lot of kids that go in with really high expectations and really want to do great things. And then they realize that there's so much more out there and volleyball isn't their true love, but they think it is. I think a lot of kids think that volleyball is like their identity. And so the big thing for me is like, that's not your identity. It's not who you are, right? Yes, you play volleyball. You're really good at it. Lindsay's fantastic at volleyball. You know, you're welcome. But that's not who she is. It's very much not just a volleyball player. There's so much more to that kid. And I think that when kids realize that, then I think they can truly find their home.
Well, and I'm glad that you brought up that find your home and find your way. When you look at your decision for Nebraska, you obviously, everybody's on board and everything's going in the right direction. But the expectation at a high school level also has to rise. When you make that early decision, what was that stress like and what was relieved by you making the decision?
I think being that young, having to worry about, you know, talking to coaches on the phone, trying to schedule visits, do camps, that's all very stressful, you know, especially before they changed the recruiting rules when I was 13 and 14 years old. They're like, what's your schedule? Mom, I don't know. Like, I'm like, at this point, talk to my mother. She's going to be able to tell you more than I will. So it was this idea of that stress was just completely taken away because that was, you know, like as a 14-year-old 8th grader, I was like, this is horrible. You know, just the recruiting process, very stressful. And then I think part of like my freshman year, I struggled with this, like, oh, like I'm committed to play volleyball at the University of Nebraska. Now I have to play like that when it's just like, so now I have this expectation that I should be playing as if I could start on their team now. And I'm like, I'm 14 years old.
At 14.
That's not a thing. So it's just, I think learning to understand that you're still young and you're still going to make quote unquote like young boneheaded mistakes, you could say, and realize that as you grow and age, you're gonna I guess grow out of that and age out of that, because it's just something that comes with continuing to get better, because nobody recruits you because they think that you're going to be able to play for them right this second. It's because they see what you're going to become over the years, and all you have to be focused on is continuing to evolve and become that player. Because, you know, you shouldn't be able to play for them when you commit for them. You should have your eyes on being the best person that you could be when you get to that point that you are on the team.
Well, and I like you brought up a thing of expectation. Of course, social media is a thing. When you're in high school, when did you decide social media was the way, but how were you able to control it? I know for myself, for our kids, and I don't know if it's a help or a hinder, but social media just wasn't a thing we thought that they needed because of the hatred that could happen on there. The way it can really change your path and mental in high school. What was your thoughts growing up with social media?
I think this could be completely wrong, but I think Instagram like became really popular when I was like 12 or so. And I think that's when I probably got one, but it was like completely different as it was now. And I think as I grew up, I think it was just my account was private, and like my parents weren't like opposed to me having one, but I think it was very different than what it is now. And I think as I grew up, I started to see how it was evolving and just understand that like I am who I am. Like Saunders said, I am who I am, and I don't need to like play this comparison game. And I think obviously I probably still fell into that over the course of my teenage years, but it's just like growing understanding that most of what you see is fake. And I think that a lot of what people see now is like you read something that's like, don't compare your like own worst times with somebody else's like highlights, because nobody's going to post about their worst times. They're only going to post their highlights. So you don't need to be comparing your horrible times with somebody else's highlights that you're seeing, because that's not
the biggest thief of joy.
Yeah,
it is.
That's
I mean, you see everybody, oh, they always go on trips.
Yeah.
That's what I get told.
Yeah.
But what people don't see is all the work that 96 hours I'll do in a week. You know, that stuff that no one looks at, or the fact that I got 4 kids that aren't in sports no more. Weird. That opens up some money, you know, and it's like those things that people don't understand. Like, I didn't stop hustling. I'm still hustling, but now I get to enjoy it a little bit.
Yeah.
Of course, you get through high school, you're going to the next level. What do you think was the biggest scare for you to think that you're about to step on the court that everybody dreams of if you're looking to go to Nebraska?
I think what was the most nerve-wracking part of it was playing in front of that many people, like live, like in a seat watching you, because, you know, never done that before. You know, in high school, we got, you know, a pretty good crowd. And then like club, there could be like a lot of people circling your court watching you, but never like, I think it's up to like 8,500 people now. So I think that was something like right when I started, during my freshman year, the first probably red white scrimmage, and then the first weekend, that was just really scary to like get over, realizing that there's just like so many people in the building. But I think that was something that was really it was a really quick thing to adjust to, and it's not something that really phases, I would say, me or anyone anymore. You know, the freshmen still feel that when they're young and they're having their first couple weekends here, but I think that was the biggest adjustment, just plainly like being nervous about, was that thing to adjust to. And, you know, you go to away settings and you're playing in front of still like 4,000 or 5,000 people. That's a lot of people in a building just watching you live, let alone the TV thing.
We got it. I mean, we have to ask about the 92,000.
Oh, we're getting there. Don't you worry about that.
All right.
Nebraska Day. But we have to ask, you go from Coach Saunders, and for those that are here that might not know who Coach Saunders is, but 9-time state champ, like, you cannot make that up. You're like the Nick Saban of Nebraska. Like, I hate to say, you could say no all you want.
He retired.
I know.
He did retire, so don't retire. But anyways, you go from a coach like Coach Saunders, and now you go to a legend like John Cook.
Mhm.
What is the biggest change that you see in the different styles between the two?
Like total opposites.
Coach is an old man. And
Young.
yes. I've literally never been coached by a man before, like ever.
Oh.
I had one club coach who was a man, but he was my club coach for all of 6 weeks because that was the season that COVID was the pandemic. So my club season was over in February, and I would have had a guy. So he was my coach for all of like 2 months, but that was something to get used to. And I'd say my freshman year, our entire staff was male. Like both of our assistant coaches, Jalen and Tyler, everybody was guys. And I was like, and you know, they've done it long enough that they understand how to coach women, and they understand that it's different. However, it's still different for an athlete coming into that environment, because after all, they're still men and they don't completely understand everything. So, you know, they try and they get it because they have the experience. Yeah. But that was honestly a really big thing to get used to.
And when you think of that change, and you think of, was there any mental struggles that you had to listen in the right direction, or did you feel like you were set in your ways that you're going to listen no matter if it was a guy or a girl?
I think it was almost, I think Saunders mentioned earlier that I'm a pretty stubborn human. So I think it was this idea that I had to get over, like, being right all the time. Cause it's just, you know, you're playing volleyball, they're coaching, it's all this stuff, you know? And sometimes it's just things, it's also about like picking your battles. I would say something that I've really learned how to do growing up, if just like Saunders said, if she's like keeping the score wrong, you know, pick your battles. Like, it's not worth it at this point. And I think growing up is something I've learned, you know, and having coach who I hope he doesn't ever listen to this, but you know, he's old to might forget something, or he might not keep score right. And I'm just like,
he would
pick
have
your
no reason to
battles.
listen.
It's not worth it. But yeah, it's just stuff like that.
All right. You're coming to a team where everybody's goals are the
Mm-hmm.
same. You have a great freshman year. What was the end of the freshman year feeling for you on all the accomplishments, but knowing that you weren't done?
Mm-hmm.
You weren't settled. There was more to go get.
Yeah, I think something that we always talk about my freshman year was it was very special just because of nobody kind of really expected it that season for us to make it to the championship. We came into the tournament as like a 10th seed, and that was like the lowest they'd been seeded. I think that year we fell out of the top 10 rankings for the first time in like 6 years or something. So it was just a season where I'd say a lot of people counted us out because of the youth starters that we had and just some of our returners. You know, we We had Lauren, who was great, and Nikki, who was a kind of like a senior setter, but I feel like everybody just really counted us out. So being able to get that far and saying that we like really came together and was one of the best teams I've been a part on was really special. And I think being able to get to the Final Four was obviously a really big goal of anybody who plays college athletics. So I think going forward, it was, we still want to be able to get that national championship. We want to get a Big Ten championship, which we got this season, which was really cool because there are obviously people that go through their entire college experience without, winning a conference title, which that was like something super special, especially being in the Big Ten. So I think just being able to, tick one goal off the list and still knowing that there's quite a few more.
Was there anything that you felt was a struggle that you didn't expect to have when you went to college that maybe someone would have known to get you over the hump to be the player that you are?
I think it's
because everybody says, oh, you're one of the greatest players, right? But they don't understand that part of an athlete, that you're still going to have something that you have to overcome. You just we might not see it or know it.
Yes, I think something that's super important realizing becoming a college athlete is pretty much no matter what sport you play, your season is becoming longer. And that's not just like a physical thing, that's a mental thing of just like, I have to get up every day and go to practice for like 5 months in a row. And that's something that is completely different from high school. High school volleyball, we're done by the first week of November. College volleyball, I'm playing all the way till Christmas. And that's a big difference. And you see that in every single sport. So I think that's a really big thing that you have to be able to prepare for, and knowing that you're probably going to hit like a hump in your season where suddenly getting up and going to practice becomes hard. Like you may want to be there and I'm enjoying it, but it's still hard to do. And I think being prepared for that to happen is going to be something that's going to be really good, that's necessary for you, because especially that freshman year where you're used to volleyball ending or whatever sport you play at a certain point, and you're like, wow, now I have to play for another 6 weeks that I'm not used to or my body's not trained for. It's something to be cognizant of going in.
We get to this year where I feel women's sports, not just volleyball, has taken this huge step. You get to go live out a dream of playing in Memorial Stadium. I mean, there's only been, I think, 3 other venue things that have happened in Memorial Stadium besides football. One's Garth Brooks. I think one is another concert way back in the day, but no one gets to be on there. What was volleyball in Nebraska Day like for you? And Coach Saunders, I'm almost guessing you were right close by and being able to. What was this experience for both of you to just live it? I unfortunately was out of town, so I didn't get an experience. I'm extremely sorry. I did get to see all of the Hurrdat Sports stuff. If you missed it, don't be afraid to check it out. It's all over the net.
Yeah, it was super special. I don't think there really are words to describe what it was like being out there. And I think most of my teammates could probably attest to this. I think none of us probably have any like memory of it because we just like blacked out the whole time because it was just so much fun and it was just like so amazing. But it was something that you can't really ever imagine happening. So I think not only, being in attendance, but being the team that was playing was going to be something that's going to, be in history.
What was the pressure just watching the other team play before you guys? I mean, you're sitting there just, you're a person that said the change from 8,000 to 90,000.
Yes, that was crazy. I think most of us didn't think we were the ones moving our bodies for like the first 5 points. It was like, like the out of body experience of like, this isn't me moving. But the worst part about this whole volleyball was the wind. It was crazy. We were talking about a lot of things that we were going into that match was like preparing for it to be kind of ugly volleyball. We were like, this is not going to be the best.
Back to YMCA
this
volleyball.
Is not going to be the best match of volleyball we've ever played. And we probably apologize to everybody in the crowd watching because it's not going to be the best match of volleyball you've ever played because we were outside and there was wind and stuff like that. But it was just so super special being able to support everybody to be a part of it, to have like Wayne State and Kearney be a part of it and getting to play UNO because, they're just as much as a part of it as we were, just getting to have this volleyball day in Nebraska because it certainly was about celebrating volleyball in Nebraska and all of these sports at every level.
Coach Saunders, you were obviously a Husker back in the 90s. What is it like to see all this come to fruition, as they would say, and know that your sport that you love and you've put so much time and dedication is finally getting the recognition and being, I mean, I think almost every college hit a record this year.
The volleyball day in Nebraska was absolutely surreal. I mean, it was one of those things where like I got there, I took my dad, he ran track at Nebraska in like the 60s. So I took him with me and we had pretty good seats. And, you know, it was time to go down in the tunnel. There was like 110 alumni down there. There was like an alumni event the night before and like all this stuff. And we got Virginia State got to open up the gates and the team ran out, and just being in the tunnel and seeing them walk out. And I don't even, Lindsay probably doesn't remember this since she left
you
out.
grabbed my arm.
I did. No, but like,
It scared me.
Watching them walk out, they were so like steer in the headway, like, you know, and then the gate opens and, you know, we're going out and the fog and then there's 92,000 people. You're just like, I can't believe, number one, we're playing volleyball outside. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
But then the other part, I can't believe there's 92,000 people watching girls
And
play
wanting to be
volleyball
here.
outside.
Yeah.
Wanting to be there and having the time of their life. And Nebraska did it right. They made it an event. It wasn't like this hodgepodge. We're just going to put a volleyball court out there and play a game. Like, it was an event. Like,
Yeah,
and it was an
very
event
thought
that went all day long. And it was an event that started the night before with the alumni. And it was absolutely like top 5 moment in my life.
I will say that was one of the coolest parts is our tunnel walk. Like, it was like every single alumni that could have made it was there and like on each side of the tunnel as we were walking out.
The history, the track record of course, Nebraska volleyball. But then, of course, through your season, the ups and downs start happening. This is where it gets hard. And that's okay, because I think when you can paint a picture, we have some other teams here that, you know, some young ladies, they don't think that you go through these things. They probably think, oh, it's Lindsay Krause. She just like goes out there and plays. What was the hardest injury that you went through this year? And what was some of the things that you had to overcome? And who was the person that was a supporter for that, of helping you get through those hard times?
Yeah. So it seemed like right when I was, you know, kind of hitting my groove and I was able to, like halfway through Big Ten season, that was when I had my ankle injury and I completely tore a couple ligaments in my ankle. So it was pretty rough and it was a long healing process and it was really hard to face. But I would say, just like in any situation, like I said, this is really not what I wanted right now. And this really sucks in this moment, but I can choose to sit in that and be upset and just wallow in it. Or I can choose to say, okay, this is my role now for what is the foreseeable future. And it ended up being what felt like forever, but this is my role. And so let's see what I can do to make my team better. Because at the end of the day, I'm still a part of this team. You know, sometimes it may not feel like I am because of the things that I have to do. And, you know, I'm not always going to be present at practice. I'm not always going to get to do all these things, but I'm still a part of this team. So what can I do for my team to further everything that we still want to accomplish? And so I think that was my new mindset. And so going into everything, I just wanted to be whatever my teammates needed. I was like another coach on the sideline. I was somebody that they could come to, be like, what are you seeing? I was, you know, a strategist, you know, all of this stuff. I was basically another scouter. So yeah, I was just kind of just exploring and opening my role of what I could do better for my team. And I'd say big supporters were definitely my athletic trainers were Jolene, and then our assistant trainer Peyton, and my strength coach Brian. They were all the people because like I completely respect it. Like Kelly and Jalen and coach, like it's going to be hard for them to try to keep and I would say pay attention to me, but that's not anything against them because they got to be with the players, you know? So this is where I get to have the support staff where this is their exact role, is to nurse me back to health. And this is their job. And that's why I got to be really close with them over those couple months and nurse me back to health. And here I am.
You have a roommate that's very close that helped in that process. What is it like to really build that bond? Because it's not every when you're all competing to get a spot on that floor, not everybody can have that support for that other teammate. What was it like to have your roommate be the number one on a teammate side? Yeah,
Merritt's great. And I think what's really sad to see as an athlete whose teammate has been injured, because I've had teammates who've been injured, is, you are in the same shoes, in the same boat that they are. You've gone through everything with them. You've put in all the work that they've put in. You see that, especially once we get to this college level, how much work we put in every day, and all of my teammates, we do it together. So I think when they see somebody that seems, kind of like a fallen teammate in a way, where we put in all this work, yet this something really horrible happens to them where it feels like that work was no longer worth it. Why did this have to happen? So I feel like all of my teammates in Merit especially are very supportive in the fact where it's just like, it feels so horrible of just like that feeling of why did this have to happen to me because of how much work you put in. And, you only have 4 years to play college volleyball. So it's like, why does this have to happen? But, I had a great support staff and my coaches, and, coach always said something great's going to come out of this. We don't see it yet, but it's going to happen. And just I had a great support staff through it all. I would say I would not go through it again if I had the choice, because a lot of people be like, if I had the choice, I would do it again. No, I wouldn't.
Not
but
today.
I learned a lot from it, I will say. And I think I will be a better person because of it.
You brought up one thing, the why, and the thing on the other side. What so far have you realized maybe this is why? Do you think it might have been to slow down because everything was going so fast? And I don't mean it in a bad way, but like to just reset you and go, okay, now I know where I'm at and I know where I can get to the next level because I was pushing myself maybe too hard. I don't know.
I think that it, in a way, you always learn from having a different perspective. And, I think going through an injury in college and understanding what your body needs and how your body works and spending as much time in the training room as I did, I think I learned a lot about my body and just how it works in general, and stuff that I maybe need to work on, stuff that maybe too strong, just everything about when it comes to my body. And also just learning how to be productive in a role that's different from playing. I'm still an athlete, I'm still a player on this team, but how can I provide for my team in a role that looks different? And so I think it's just how you look at it and how you decide to frame it in your brain of how can I still become a better person in this role that I'm in, rather than becoming a better volleyball player. How am I going to become a better, coach? How am I going to have better communication skills? How am I going to scout better, stuff that I'm going to need down the line.
Your year doesn't end the way that everybody wants it to end. What was that, and how did that feel? What's going to come this upcoming year for you guys?
I think, I don't know. I can't say a lot just because it happens. And I mean, I would say going through that, having been through that before, I would say the second time did sting a little bit more, I would say. And I think just going forward, we're all going to understand that we weren't there by accident. And I think something that coach said was this one loss. I think what hit home was this one loss does not take away from everything that we did this season and everything that we accomplished and all of the goals that we did meet, because we didn't meet this one goal. And it may seem like the end all be all in this moment, but it's not, essentially. And when you look back at your whole career, this isn't going to be the game that you come back to, all of this stuff. So I think coach was really had the eyes, and he had the right mindset coming into it, especially talking to all of us after it hurt so much.
Coach, your instances in this as a coach has not been the same. You've obviously had a lot of success. What do you think the importance is of what she's gone through in this past couple of years? Just also opens up yourself as a coach to go, okay, there's some things I could take away from a player that I'm very close to and bring it to my team.
I can, well, first of all, I can totally empathize, because I think I spent most of my college career in the training room, and it's very isolating. It's very lonely. And I think that having a good support system, having a good training staff, having the coaches communicating well with you is really, really important. So on my end as a coach, I feel like I'm pretty good when kids are injured of making sure I'm communicating, hey, your priority is take care of your health first, but we want you around. Because when I was in college, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be around or if I was supposed to be in training room or I was supposed to be here, because nobody told me. I'd never been hurt before.
It's a
really weird dynamic.
Situation.
Am I in the right spot? As a coach, know that I'm in the right spot.
Because my trainer's well, coach wants to practice. I'm well, I understand that, but I also have exercises I have. I'm does he want me healthy or does he want me watching practice?
You can't have both.
Yes. Like, you got to make up your mind.
But I think as a whole, like even like I was down at the Final Four, and I think like that game was, the Huskers had such a great year, and they did so many things. And I think Volleyball Day Nebraska like spearheaded all of it, like for the whole nation, like attendance and all these things. To go back to your earlier question, so they did accomplish a ton, and I think so that hype was all there, right? And then when we just didn't play well, we just had a bad game, and then like the first thing I come out of my mouth, I'm like, what happened? Like literally, like that's what I'm thinking. But then I think about all the things that they accomplished. I think that loss is going to fuel them more than anything else for the next year, right? So having that perspective of, hey, we've been here before. We know what we have to get better at, and we're going to work our butts off to make sure it doesn't happen again. Like we're not going to get served off the court again. Like it's not going to happen.
Well,
Right?
We're just like,
right.
I know what we're doing this spring.
Serve,
I was
receive,
like,
all spring. Serve, receive, serve, receive.
like, oh, yay, coach, I can tell you're excited.
Well, the best part about being live is as we're wrapping up here, I'd really like to give an opportunity if there's 4 or 5 girls that would like to ask any question to Lindsay. We can go ahead and ask a question. Let her answer. Any of the athletes out there have a question? Go ahead, stand up, any of them. First year, age of playing volleyball.
So I started like the lower level YMCA league volleyball when I was 9 in like 3rd grade. And then I started playing club volleyball at Premier when I was in 5th grade. So when I was 11.
All right. Go ahead. If you could play basketball, and obviously at Nebraska, there's a lot of dual sport athletes. Would you play basketball?
If it was both, I can say probably not. Because even if I had that opportunity, I think that's just crazy. And I commend anybody who is able to do it. I don't know how they do it, but that is insane. And I think playing one sport is enough. However, I think if, I didn't play volleyball, I would love to play basketball because I think I just love being in this scene, in this environment. And I think
5th year. I'll call Amy for
Are you
you.
allowed to do that?
Yeah,
Oh my God.
I'll let her know.
So if you see her hoop, and now we know why.
But I enjoyed playing basketball, and I think it was fun. I think I was pretty good, but I enjoyed just, running up and down. I was always in great basketball shape. I could play the whole time, just sprinting up and down the court. And that was also just how my high school team played. We were kind of known for just like making the game a track meet.
Fast breaks.
We didn't like the slow game. We were running. So that was just something I was used to. So I just felt like I was always in great shape during basketball season.
All right. Any other ones? Yes, ma'am. Hardest transition from high school to college for you?
I think the hardest transition as far as school goes, because I'd say the season being longer was the hardest athletic transition, but academic, I would say the idea that everything you're doing is pretty much in your hands. Like you decide if you want to go to class.
They're not
decide if you want to turn your paper in. You're deciding if you're passing or failing. So I think that's the biggest thing where people, they move away from home and they're like, whoa, I could just not go to class. This is crazy.
No one's going to ask me a question.
Nobody cares if I'm there.
They're not going to ask what my grades are.
My mom's not going to be like, hey, I got a call from your teacher saying you weren't in class
get that
today.
test in.
So I think that's a big jump in realizing that your education is pretty much entirely in your hands. And, I'm lucky enough that I can play volleyball and get a scholarship to do this. But, going to college, your education is completely up to you. You sign up for your classes. You decide what you want to study. It's all in your hands. So it's really about just if you're motivated enough to do it.
Personal responsibility.
Yeah.
Responsibility.
You learn a lot about yourself.
Any other ones out there? Yes, ma'am. Oh, favorite place. And I'm going to add to this, not just traveling for college volleyball, but also for during your club team.
Okay.
Because you've been to some amazing places that some of us just wish and dream and could have been.
Mm-hmm.
2 favorite places.
So for college, a really fun place to play is Penn State. Whenever we go to Penn State, that was really cool. Just that, I'd say that gym specifically. But I love whenever we go to like Michigan State trip, just because Michigan's beautiful. So whenever we usually have a lot of free time, like the day of our match, like we'll have the whole morning just to do whatever. So a lot of times, so like a group of us will kind of just like walk around, see the campus, everything. It's always really pretty there.
Find a coffee shop.
Yes, we like to find a local coffee shop, not a chain.
But you are a regular occasionist to one chain. I mean, that my own daughter is your barista.
Hey, it's right by my house.
It is.
So easy. It's easy.
She said
my
she threw
mom's
you off.
favorite.
Now, as far as your favorite place to travel when you were in club?
Yes. So at the younger level, for USA, I went to the Netherlands and Belgium. That was our latest trip. That was when I was 18. That was where we played U20 World Championships. So we spent the first half in the Netherlands, and then we went to Belgium for the second half, and then we ended up finishing 5th place in that tournament. And then we also, so that was our U20 World Championships, U18 World Championships. We went to Egypt. It was so cool to get to be there, but we honestly didn't really get to do a lot while we were there, other than, play volleyball, go to the hotel, play volleyball, go to the hotel. But we got to see everything, which was really cool, and the support that they had. But we actually won World Championships that year, which was the first time they'd ever won it at that level. But yeah, I've got to travel some cool places. Netherlands
is a place that I want to take my wife. I lived there 4 years. I was an Air Force brat. We actually have a piece of the Berlin Wall because we were there. Yes, I'm older. I'm not old. But but as a kid, I never took advantage of it. I was just like, everybody gets to do this. Everybody gets to see. Cool. But it's just an amazing sight to see. So if you get to go, but I appreciate your time. I appreciate your story. There's a lot of people that look up to you more than you know, and just giving a little feedback of not just the struggle, but all the happiness, but putting it all together so they know that you're human. And I think that sometimes they forget that. They're like, they think you're a superwoman.
Yeah.
And you're great at what you do, but you also are a human, and you have the concepts that we have of a struggle, whether it's an injury, social media, stuff that take away from the joy of what we do. But I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you tuned in, those who showed, you got a question? Go ahead. All right.
Ooh, good one.
Get the US thing. So like I was at team educational outlook, the ball music early starting get sports. It's all fantastic. Teams like people like Nebraska.
Do I what?
Yeah, still coach at Skutt. Yeah.
So like how did people like Nebraska for like I said the volleyball team, all amazing at volleyball. How's educational career now in Pro League in the US? Does that change my high school kids? I think fast break too.
You're not the only one.
Yeah, get in line.
They change outlooks.
I think, especially at the start, this league is, to my knowledge, only going to be like 4 months long. Is that correct?
January to May.
Yeah. So it's
5 months.
like, 4.5, 5 months long.
And that's this year. They might get longer when they add more teams.
Right. So that's like right now. However, that's opposed to like European and Asia teams. I think what's a lot of things that there's a lot of athletes that want to go play pro. However, it is such a massive commitment outside of just playing volleyball, because you're moving to a country you've probably never been to before with nobody that you know to play a sport for 8 to 9 months out of the year, and nobody on your team probably speaks English. So like that's going to look really different. And there's a lot of people that have aspirations to play pro volleyball, except they just don't have the desire to, go live in Germany from September to May and probably see their family maybe once, and then have a completely different time zone, maybe you have one other American on your team, just stuff like that, where I think it's going to be a really good cultural experience. However, there's a lot of people that are just like, I have no desire to do that. And so I think what this American Pro League is going to do is open the doors for people that want to play pro volleyball, but don't want to go so far to do that.
And will the NIL change when you want to do that? Because obviously, even for football players, they don't always just want to go to the pros now, because they can make pretty big bank just staying at a college.
Yeah. I think just the way it looks is the idea that volleyball, as of right now, there's not as much money in it as there is these other bigger sports. So I think it's the idea that this NIL, like you said, is opening the doors for these people at the college level, and also the kind of the dedication, the fans you get at the college level, and the academics, all that stuff. It's like, why would I pass this up? The opportunity to play pro will still be there when I'm done. I don't need to go just, go make money,
From the high school level.
I think the majority of kids are still going to go pro in something other than sports. Like, they're going to have to get a job at some point. So yes, it's awesome that it's here. We can stay in the States, be on a team with people who speak English. It's going to be a growing league. Gabby Thompson came from Penn State. She came from and is working remotely, is on the team, is married to like a Major League Baseball player. And she's a stud. And she didn't want to play right away. She needed to like regroup herself and like take a break. And now she's back, and she probably shanked a lot of balls first practice.
Or like Gina Mancuso.
Yeah. And
like she did that. Like, she went overseas for 7-8 years.
Betty Cruz was
realized I don't want to do that anymore. So she retired for 3 years. Now she's playing volleyball again because it's in Omaha.
So I mean, you had, I'm sure the first practice of the training camp probably weren't the prettiest, but I promise it's going to be a good product.
Well, and I'm glad that you brought it up. Obviously, one big thing is we want to support the pro time in Nebraska. The Omaha Supernovas hit the court for the first ever Pro Volleyball Foundation match just 1 week from today at the CHI versus Atlanta Vibe. First service at 7 p.m. We have, of course, Coach Saunders is going to be on the color commentating, so she's changing her role.
Don't judge my first.
Are you excited?
I know we will be in attendance. We'll see how she does the first time, but also don't forget, you can secure either your season pass, single match tickets. You could go check them out, supernovas.com. You're really witnessing some world-class athletes, because it's not just college. It's not Olympians only. It's not all America. It's all of that put together. They're coming from all across the United States, and maybe even
a couple overseas,
coming back from overseas, or even just from overseas. Just remember, this is a movement that has started this year. If you're not noticing it, volleyball is coming in hard for these girls, and I'm glad that they get these opportunities. So make sure to check them out. Omaha Supernovas at omahasupernovas.com. And once again, this Wired Access podcast, we're here live at Hurrdat Sports Bar. Thank you again for tuning in. Brian Southworth, Miss Coach Saunders, and of course, Lindsay Krause from Omaha, from Nebraska Cornhuskers. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time.